You, sir, will be happy to know that you are currently speaking with the Indian Idol of Atlanta.
Welcome back to Let's Ascend, a channel where you get perspectives on rising up in your personal and professional life. My today's guest is Navin Gurnaney, who's the outgoing CEO of Starbucks India. Navin would soon be taking up a new role as the CEO of a new Reliance Group company. Navin had a phenomenal career spanning over 4 decades where he dabbled between entrepreneurship and the corporate world. He worked across US and India. Navin shared his life story along with some highly valuable rising up lessons that he learned along the way. Navin had some specific ideas for young Indian professionals based on his experience in the Western corporate world. And as always, do watch this video till the end because Navin sang a beautiful song to conclude this video. So let's watch the story of this highly accomplished professional.
Well, thank you, Vishal. First of all, I feel like I'm in the wrong room when you said that you talk to highly accomplished people. So I feel like, okay, maybe I'm in the wrong room over here. I've had some level of success, but I wouldn't necessarily go as far as putting myself in the category of highly accomplished people, but it's very kind of you to invite me. I was born in India. I'm a Bombay boy, and then I was away for about 31 years. Lived in America, spent some time in Europe, and I've been back now, and I'm a Mumbai man. I don't talk about this often enough, but I grew up in very, very humble circumstances. My father was an entrepreneur all his life. I wish I could say successful. Never really had any level of success with it. So we grew up in very humble circumstances. I went to college in India. I went to Sydenham College. I was 19 when I started working, which was unusual at that time, the year 1977, for a 19-year-old boy to double hat while in college, take up a job. But in hindsight, I feel like it was a fortunate thing. It instilled a certain work ethic in me, right? And then got a couple of fortunate breaks. Went on to own a small restaurant chain company. Had a decent level of success, living as an upper middle class individual in India. And life was very comfortable. And then I decided to move to the US to be with my wife. And had to start from scratch again, which was very humbling. So had trouble finding the right level job, but I had a family to take care of. So I started off as a restaurant manager. It was particularly difficult for me, right? The immigrant journey, typically, and I speak more of America because that's where most of the immigration happens, right? Is always challenging. Because there's cultural differences, there's depending on your own education as well. I mean, I didn't have a great education. I had a basic undergrad degree, and then I had a business, experience. It was very challenging, very, very challenging. So what helped me was honestly a lot of self-talk. I didn't have a lot of allies in the US. And your ego also gets hurt because if you're making a good living in India, you've got a nice place to live, you've got a car and driver, you've got I had a small sized organization with 1,000 people working in it. To then go to running a restaurant was very humbling, very, very humbling. And in a way, what doesn't break you makes you stronger. It did make me stronger. But the kind of talk that I had in my head was my experience in Ladakh. When I was 21 years old, I was running a hotel in Ladakh at 16,000 feet above sea level. No one to fall back on. The Bombay head office was, 3,000 kilometers away. The telephones didn't even work. And so the mantra that kept me going at that time was, if it is to be, it is up to me. And so the first few years that I struggled, I mean, when I say struggled, I wasn't sleeping on the streets. I had a nice apartment, I had a car and all that. But just mentally to think of yourself as an upper middle class individual and to get back into a different economic strata was challenging for me, right? To be, setting the tone for the entire business and then taking instructions from somebody else was challenging for me. So those are things that you have to have a lot of self-talk about, and mental tenacity, will help in that transition. If your question is, should one attempt the transition, right? I would say absolutely, because otherwise you'll always live with the regret कि किया होता तो क्या होता, right? करके देखो. Knock on wood. I've done pretty well despite all those difficulties in restarting life at age 30. Did that for a couple of years, then became a multi-unit manager with Pizza Hut, and then started a business again. The entrepreneurial bug was in me, which also was quite successful. But I got recruited by Domino's to run their New England business, and so I was in the pizza business for a few years. Subsequently had the Europe market. I had the UK, France, Netherlands, Portugal, Denmark, Iceland, and for a while I had India as well. So, but I lived in near Boston, so I was commuting. And finally got fed up with that, and I came to Starbucks. And then Starbucks also was a wonderful journey. I worked in operations. I worked at the support center, in the drive-through business, and then I was in the human resources group for a while. Had a lot of fun. And then had the opportunity to work on the merger between Office Depot and Office Max, which is the big box supplies, office supply stores. Did that for a few years and then retired. I had done well, and I was really looking after my own portfolio, and then also singing. Well, you, sir, will be happy to know that you are currently speaking with the Indian Idol of Atlanta. I should reset expectations here. There's a difference between Indian Idol Atlanta and Indian Idol India. Anyway, so I was doing fundraisers for charity, having a jolly good time. And then Starbucks came calling once again, and then I got pulled away to this role in India, which I led the Starbucks business for a couple of years now. In fact, I'm just about to transition to a new role. So that's been my journey so far. Met some wonderful people, wonderful mentors. Learned a lot, and I'm grateful for all my experiences. I have learned so many lessons. You name a mistake, I have made it. Right? But one doesn't just learn from mistakes alone. We learn from everything that happens around us. And first of all, I should tell the young people who take my advice that they shall do so at their own peril. I offer no guarantees, but I think some of the things that I might mention could perhaps be useful. Value people. Everyone brings something to the table. Respecting and valuing people is always a good thing to do. Right? And I know this is going to sound harsh, but you're asking me, so I'll say it. Right? I want to be useful. In the realm of being useful, I want to be transparent as well. I find that is not always the case in India. Right? And of course, I'm making a wide, sweeping generalization here, so forgive me for that. But in general, I think that the Western Hemisphere has learned to respect and value people more than people in India. So, and it's changing. I've actually seen a change in 2.5 years that I've been here, and I'm hoping that we'll accelerate that change. But I think respecting and valuing people is really, really important. I'll give you a quick story, right? In the food and beverage business in the US, the attrition rate used to be very high. I mean, there was a time when McDonald's had a 300% attrition rate, right? Which is damaging to any business. So I had the opportunity of being on a task force that tried to understand what was going on. And so we couldn't talk to the people who had left. We talked to the people who stayed. Right? And so what keeps you here? Which is sort of the converse of what makes you leave. Right? The number one thing that people said, right? They said, my manager treats me with respect. And then there were things like, I learn new skills, I enjoy being here, it's a collegial atmosphere, and so on and so forth. And I make a decent wage. Making a decent wage was number 5. So, respecting and valuing people is definitely one major key to success. And then I would also say empathy. Learn to put ourselves in the other's shoes and try to understand behavior. What is it, right? And it's amazing how sometimes you can, flick a switch in an individual just by operating with empathy and understanding what it is that's making them behave in the way that they're behaving. People have all kinds of compulsions. So empathy and kindness, I think, goes a long way. This is not the opposite of performance by no measurement. Let me be very, very clear about that, right? Performance is absolute performance. I think Starbucks does a wonderful job of that. We have this thing at Starbucks that says we value performance through the lens of humanity. I think we do a very good job of that. I mean, everyone professes to do that, but I think it's well practiced here, and I've definitely own that as an operating principle. Listening comes to mind. Right? One of the things that I don't know who said that if you're the smartest guy in the room, then you're probably in the wrong room, right? There are far more smart people around, and we need to listen to the opinions of everyone. Steve Jobs is famously known for his quote that says, "We hire smart people not so we can tell them what to do, so they can tell us how to do things differently." As a leader, you also have to encourage the idea of speaking up, and that is particularly relevant in India, right? In our hierarchical society, we're not used to that, and so I think I would say to a young 24-year-old person, you must be courageous. You must have a point of view. Right? What's the worst that will happen? The worst that will happen is that you'll get fired. That's the worst that will happen. And if you're with a company that will fire you for expressing your opinion with conviction, then you probably should not be there. One of the things I tell my nephews and nieces and my daughter is be curious. All kinds of curiosity, right? Intellectual curiosity, learning about things that you don't know about, different things, learning about people. Be interested in people. As I mentioned, I started working at the age of 19 because my family ran into some economic problems. So I don't have a fancy schooling. I don't even have an MBA. I sometimes, one of my regrets in life is perhaps I should have studied more. But having said that, I see a lot of people who studied a lot more, who struggle, right? So who knows? So I think curiosity has helped me tremendously. The other thing that I think I have gained from is operating with urgency. Do it quickly. We've got things to do, places to go. There's no time for dilly-dallying here, right? Let's do it. What's the worst that will happen? Right? The worst that will happen is that we may fail in this venture. So fine, then we learn from it and we move on. And that's another thing I would say, right? Urgency. Fail often, fail fast, right? You heard many people say that. Some very, very successful companies have adopted that as a mantra. and I'm blessed with an innate sense of urgency. So I'm grateful for that. But if you don't have it in an innate manner, then develop it, right? The other lesson that I have learned is winter is coming. Frugality is important. Right? Having worked for different companies, I saw stark differences between, and I won't go into names, but I saw stark differences between how one operated and the other operated in very similar circumstances. And people don't realize that winter is coming. So let's be thoughtful in how we spend our money. This is not the opposite of investment, right? Investments have to be made in the business, but they have to be thoughtful. Finally, I would say one more thing is that don't be afraid to ask for help. And I often say this in India more often than I say elsewhere, right? As we've got a new sort of mindset here of ambition and growth and let's get it done and let's get there fast and all that. Sometimes asking for help in India is seen as weakness. And of course, the larger landscape on that has to change, but who will change it? Society is us, right? It's we. So we all have to start becoming more comfortable with the idea of asking for help and not see it as, what will people think of me? Well, if they want to think of you, poorly, then that's a shame on them, right?
Are you allowed to share? What are you up to next?
I'm actually joining the Reliance Group. So we're launching 2 new verticals, beauty and food. And I will be CEO for the foods division, Reliance Brands Food. I'm offended that they did not pick me for beauty, but that's okay. Maybe when I grow up.
So before I let you go, you were the Indian Idol for Atlanta, right? So we have to see a demonstration of that. And my request would be if you could try and relate, your journey to the song that kind of summarizes the essence of your journey. I think it will be terrific if you could sing a few lines for us.
I'm in Dubai right now. My brother and my bhabhi are taking a nap, so I'll try and be a little soft so I don't wake them up. But I'll do it. किसी की मुस्कुराहटों पे हो निसार, किसी का दर्द मिल सके तो ले उधार, किसी के वास्ते हो तेरे दिल में प्यार, जीना इसी का नाम है.